Okay, this week we are going to do some review with the slope intercept and the point slope form and make sure that we can identify the slope, the point, and the intercepts of linear equations. For right now, let's make sure that we've minimized our distractions. We've got pencils out. You can get your Desmos online calculator out, and this is your video, and you got your guided practice and your Google Forms assignment. All right, first and foremost, if I want to identify the slope, x-intercepts, and y-intercepts of each of these, I'm going to take the graph. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so we can see it. We're going to take the graph, and I like to go ahead and draw my triangle in. I find that to be very useful. So I've got one. Remember, slope on a graph is rise over run. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. Okay, I also notice that this slope is going downhill. Okay, so if it's going downhill, it's negative. So we're going to call this negative 5 over 2. Okay, now just for purposes of being able to see this graph a little better, I'm going to delete this. Let's talk about the x and y intercept, okay? Well, the x-intercept is right here, okay? It's not quite at 1, but it's not a half. So we'll call the x-intercept maybe 0.75. Now remember, this is a guesstimate because I don't have an exact point, but it's close. For the y-intercept, my y-intercept's right here at 2. So let's go ahead and put these in coordinate form. So I've got the x is 0.75, the y is 0. And then for the y-intercept, the x is 0, and I went up 2. Okay, so let's do that. Good practice there. All right, so let's talk about this next one. We want to know what the slope is. Do you notice that there's no rise over run here? There's no up, there's no down. It's just kind of, it's a flat line. So we've learned in the past our little statement of Hoy. Okay, Hoy means it's horizontal, and there, if it's horizontal, it has a 0 slope. Okay, now what's the x-axis? What's the x-intercept? So let's talk about this. Right across here, that's the x-axis. Where does that cross the x-axis? Well, it doesn't. So when I see that, I'm just going to put none, because it actually never crosses, and that's okay. So let's talk about the next one, the y-axis, the y-intercept. So we actually do have a y-intercept. It's right here. All right, and it's at -3. So it's at 0, -3. All right, good. Let's look at this next one. This next one's also a special case. We want to know what the slope is. Well, I have a rise, but it keeps going and going and going, and it never stops, right? So, but there's no run, all right? So let's talk about what that means. We learned the acronym here, VUX, okay? This is for vertical lines because this is definitely a vertical line. If it's a vertical line, it's undefined slope. Now, let's talk about its x-intercept. Do I have an x-intercept here? Oh yeah, unlike the last one, I actually do cross the x-axis, and I cross it right there at -1. So what I'm going to say is my x-intercept is -1, 0. All right? Now, do I actually ever cross the y-axis? No, I don't. And so when that happens, again, I'm just going to put none. All right. Now, the next question says, which axis is each graph parallel to? Okay, so we know that parallels like railroad tracks. Okay, so let's talk about this one. This line is here. This is the line we're talking about, and we're talking about the axis that it's parallel to. Well, which axis is the horizontal axis? Well, if you can't remember our statement HOI, which I don't think that one's going to help you out, is it? We'll delete that. This is the x-axis, okay? So this is parallel to the x-axis. Okay, let's talk about this line. You can see it's parallel to, remember this is the y-axis, to the y-axis. So if in doubt, just draw a picture or put it on a graph, but do something to help yourself. All right, this next one says to write a linear equation with a slope of 1 and a y-intercept of -7. So I've got my y equals mx plus b. So I've got y is equal to the slope, which is 1, x, plus b, which is -7. I'm not going to write plus, I'm just going to write -7. Now, do I need this -1? No, it's unnecessary in this situation. All right, let's talk about this one. Identify the slope and the y-intercept of this graph. Now remember, the slope is sitting right here beside the m, right? That's the m. So what is sitting beside there? Well, it's -3. So my slope is -3. All right, what's my y-intercept? What am I adding? Well, I'm adding nothing. So, is there a y-intercept? No, there's none. There is no y-intercept. So, we're just going to leave it at that, okay? All right, let's talk about this next one. I have a point and I have a slope. Now, remember the formula, y minus y1 is equal to the slope times x minus x1. Now, remember those x1 and y1, those are the coordinates that I need, okay? So I'm going to do y, I'm going to put an x and a y above these so I don't get confused. Minus y1, well that's a -9, so I got minus -9. Well, I can just write plus 9 is equal to the slope, which I already know is -5/4, times x minus x1. And I am done. All right, let's try this next one. I've got my slope, which is 3, and my coordinates are -4 and 7. So I've got y minus y1. Well, I'm going to go ahead and write x and y above these, so I don't want to get this confused. -7, so that means I'm just going to write plus 7, is equal to the slope, which is 3, times x plus 4. And I'm done. What if I have to write these in an equation, or I have a word problem? I said there's a daily fee for renting a moving truck plus a charge of 50 cents per mile driven. If driven 48 miles, it costs $64 to rent the truck. Well, if we're going to write this in the point slope form, let's quickly talk about what's the point and what's the slope that we're given, okay? So let's talk about, I've got the slope. Well, when I say, what am I looking for? Something that says I've got 50 cents per mile driven. That's my slope, guys, that 50 cents. 50 cents, or you could have written 1/2. Either way, it doesn't matter. But I would, for purposes of this question, since it gives it to me as a decimal, I would keep it that way. So my slope is 50 cents. What is my point here? Well, my point is going to be, I need an x and a y, okay? So let's talk about how I get to those, okay? It says, if driven 48 miles, it cost $64. It gives it to me right there, guys. If it's 48 miles, is $64. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. I've got y minus y1. Now let's, again, this is x and this is y. Y minus 64 is equal to the slope, which is 0.5, times x minus x1. Okay, Chit Chat Wireless charges 30 cents per minute plus a monthly base fee. In September, Maggie used 120 minutes on her bill. So let's talk about this. We have 30 cents per minute, and then for 120 minutes, her bill was $51. So let's talk about the slope is 30 minutes, so that's per minute. And then my points right here at 120 minutes for her bill was $51. So we have 120 minutes, the bill was $51. Okay, so now I've got y minus y1. So let's go ahead, this is x, this is y. Minus 51 is equal to the slope times x minus x1. And I'm done, guys. That's it. All right, so sometimes we make these a little harder than they are, myself included, but be patient. All right, so week 6 assignments is you have a Google Forms assignment, the slope intercept and point slope review. And then there is a mandatory assessment that the district has given for us. It's a residence learning self-reflection assessment. You must be doing this. You have to do it in all your classes. This is one of those you're paying to play, guys. So make sure that you are getting this done. Join us online if you have any questions during our office hours. Remember, they're Monday and Wednesdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then again from 2 to 3.